Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Chris Lee. Commodore fans, on your feet. It's time to anchor down.
Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast, presented by Dr. Jody Jones DDS. We're part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Luke Wyatt. Luke and I will talk about Vanderbilt's 3-game winning streak in basketball and touch on some baseball and some football too. Luke appears on the guest line that is presented by Michael Kendrick of the Kendrick Group. Michael is a local carpenter and a lifelong Vandy fan. He builds bookshelves, cabinets, picture frames, furniture, and made-to-order items, including a display case for my prized Dale Murphy jersey. I've seen Michael's work. He's a true craftsman. If you're in the market for custom woodwork, give Michael a call at 615-830-9458. Now on to our interview with Luke Wyatt. Luke Wyatt joins us today, as he does every Monday. Luke, hope you had a good and happy and safe Super Bowl weekend. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, I did, and if you're a Vanderbilt fan, for several reasons, you've had a really good week, starting back with the Tennessee game and the Florida game, and then if you're a true Vanderbilt fan, you enjoyed Tennessee's second game of the weekend as well. The odds of losing like that are pretty slim. That's the kind of stuff that unfortunately has happened to Vanderbilt in the past. So hope we enjoyed the week, and hopefully there's more to come, because we seem like we've turned a corner, Chris. The way we played against Tennessee was more impressive than anything. I thought Tennessee played really, really well. They shot high 40s on the road. Their defense was good, but we did a great job not turning the ball over, never getting much separation either way. I think the game never got more than 5 points for either team. And then to execute a play the way we did down the stretch, that's about as good as you can end a basketball game.
It's been a pretty good 10-day run for benevolent dictatorships.
You got that right. Hey, who would have thought that losing by 57 to Alabama was what this team needed? Since that game, say what you want, we've won 3 in a row, played just well enough to beat Ole Miss. And then same thing with Tennessee. And then I thought an incredible performance offensively Saturday against Florida. There for a while, I didn't think anybody was going to stop scoring. I thought the score was going to be 120 to 118. But yeah, just an incredible week. Liam Robbins, can't say enough about that kid. What he did Saturday, that's player of the. Surely he gets player of the week. If he doesn't, I don't know who played any better than he has last couple games.
Yeah, he has had in the last 3 games, he has scored 65 points. He's hit 7 3-pointers. He's been, 18 of 25 from the foul line. Pulled double-digit rebounds in 2 of those 3 games. He's blocked, 14 shots over the last 3. I mean, look, there are many different angles we can take with this podcast today, including what the bleep was going on before this. But Liam Robbins has been the linchpin of this whole turnaround, I think.
Oh, there's no question. Now, there's been a cast of characters that have also done this, but
including the one that he benched in Alabama. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. What I'm probably scratch my head about is go back to Memphis. Okay, let's start at Memphis. And the change of how we substitute, who gets minutes, who doesn't. And I'm not, obviously you throw out injuries and that type of thing. There's nothing any coach can do about that. But you just scratch your head. Now, we're not at practice, okay? So we don't get what's going on at practice, or we don't get who misses treatment, who shows up late for a workout, or those type of things. In football, this kind of stuff gets lost because there's so many players on the field. You don't realize, hey, so-and-so didn't start today, or so-and-so hadn't played a lot of minutes. It happens in every sport. But this and in basketball, there's only 5 on the court, so you're going to know everything. It's all out there for you to see. So in Jerry's defense, that obviously the Tyron Lawrence thing, he pushed the absolute correct button on him.
Yes. Yeah, he did. And look, I think he and Lawrence have had a pretty good relationship despite what people have said here and there. No, look, I don't think that Jerry's relationship with anybody's been 100% all the time. I think there's times he's rubbed his own kids the wrong way. But yeah, whatever message he wanted to get across in Alabama, he certainly got it across. And Tyron wasn't very good against Florida, only had 4 points, but he's kind of become that. And like my question was, can Jordan Wright be this guy? I just didn't know if Jordan was athletic enough. Jordan can do some good things, but Tyron is a kid who I think has got some traits that you can bank on in terms of athleticism, and a guy that can be your number 2, your number 1 some nights. And his development, Robbins is the story of the season, but Lawrence would be number 2, I think.
I do. I think something that we figured out with Jordan Wright, at least it seems, I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but if he has limited minutes, he is a much better basketball player. I don't know if he gets tired. I don't know if he's loses focus, but if he plays 20 minutes, he's a lot better than when he plays 30. I don't know why that is, but if you look at the games where he's been in high minutes, his performance has not been great.
Yeah, I guess the exception would be those NIT games at the end of last year, but that was different. Right. They had Pippen and other people to be worried about.
Yeah, and I guess I'm bringing it. Maybe I should be clearer. I meant since Jordan's early season injury where he landed real hard and he had the back issues, I think that's it. Maybe he tightens up a little bit. I don't know. And it could be coincidence. I don't know. But the one guy I would also say that was the best recruit on this team, forget the 5 freshmen, it was Ezra Mannion. Without Ezra,
where I was going next. Right.
Yeah, we don't get much done without him because, look, you'd be playing point guard with Lewis and Trey Thomas more than likely. And then, this team would really be in trouble.
Yeah, 3-game winning streak. He's played 34, 29, 33 minutes working backwards, scored 11, 7, 6. But here's the big stat. He's had 20 assists to 2 turnovers in those 3 wins.
The 2 turnovers is mind-boggling. As much as he handles the ball, that's incredible. And I knew when he came that was the thing he did a great job of at Cal Davis. He didn't. My most impressive thing about him, and when I looked at his stats, was the turnover ratio. He was really good. He's even been better. And now that he's stepped up in competition, he's even been better with that.
Yeah, and the thing that you heard Jerry Stackhouse, I don't know if he was this explicit with it or not, but he talked about how he thought they were, in so many words, a better team with Ezra running the point than with Pippen. I mean, Pippen was never his kind of point guard. He doesn't like his point guards to score as much. He likes them to distribute, and this is, now, look, I think he thought that their pardon me, their defense would be a lot better than it is. That is not held up at all. But offensively, this is the kind of point guard I think he wants.
I agree with that. I don't know Phil Ford's stats at North Carolina, but he reminds me of the way Phil Ford would handle the basketball, that type of thing. So that's where that kind of probably comes from. Maybe that's what he played with at North Carolina. And I think if you listen to Jerry, he draws North Carolina like a gun. And understandably so. They were very successful. But everything he does basketball-wise goes back to Dean Smith. If you look at the way they played back in the non-shot clock era, I think Jerry would be very happy to play games that ended 51-50. I think the Tennessee game was right up his alley. The game was really physical, and the officials let people bang on Robbins, but they also let Robbins bang on Tennessee's bigs. And that was the type of game it was. And I think he thrives in those type of games. Now, Saturday, there for a while, like I said, I didn't think anybody was going to guard anybody, and it was just like a YMCA game. But luckily, in the second half, those last 10 minutes, I felt we did a much better job defensively than we did the entire game, because we were lucky they weren't hitting any threes, and Florida's not a good three-point shooting team either way. But it wasn't because we were guarding them tight, I can tell you that.
Yeah, what I got to watch, and I was limited. My son turned 9 Saturday.
Good for him.
We had a birthday party at a place called Dad's Dugout. It's a baseball card shop in Brentwood. They're getting a free plug here because they were phenomenal.
Okay.
So I'm watching the first few minutes at home, and then I'm running errands. I'm picking up Chick-fil-A, and I'm getting there, and we did have it on the TV there. I got to see the last few minutes between, screaming kids and, Chris, would you please do this or would you please do that? But the part I did see was the first 10 minutes and 1 second where they don't have a stoppage of play.
Yeah, no.
I may never see that again. It's crazy. Yeah.
You won't. Chris, there was never even a ball tipped. You know how during the flow of an offense you get a ball tipped out of bounds? There was never even that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know that you could play 1,000 games and have that happen again. Yeah.
No, you can't play a pickup game at the Y and that happens. So
right.
It's a good thing we hit 9 out of our first 10 shots or whatever we did, because if someone would have faulted during that time, somebody could have jumped out to a 15-point lead.
And lo and behold, Leon Robbins had 13 points before he had to come out, or before he came out. I guess he didn't have to, but I said we could go in different ways on the podcast today. That is certainly one thing that you could underscore as a point of frustration, is like, if you watch him, you're like, what is he doing? Why is he not out there more? But
absolutely. Yeah, I see that. But what I'm seeing in the last 3 games is this. Okay, that 10th guy that comes in the game has been different in the last 3 games. Like, for instance, it was Noah Shelby and Ansong didn't play Saturday. I think there's matchups that go on that now, early in the year when we weren't doing a good job necessarily, it was almost like we're going to throw this guy in and see what he can do. It's no longer the case. It's more well thought out. And I have noticed, and maybe it's just because I've been paying more attention to it, he sure has talked a lot more to his assistants and listened to them more than he has in his whole career since he's been at Vanderbilt. And I think that's a good thing. So,
you mean besides Nicky Gross?
I mean, it's kind of like when I was growing up, my daddy beat my butt for not doing things right, and it took a few whippings before I knew to do right, to act correctly. It's that type of thing. It took Jerry getting beat a few times to figure out, hey, look, I got to take this more seriously, or we're not going to win any games.
Yeah. Here's the other guy we haven't talked about yet. Trey Thomas, I'm looking on Ken Palm, had an offensive rating of 258 in that game.
Well, he didn't do it. Shot, did he? I don't think
he didn't miss a shot. 16 points, does not miss a shot from the floor or the foul line. 28 minutes. Now, there wasn't much else there. One rebound and nothing else.
Well, that's what Trey is. If you give him open shots, and Florida was doing that, well, giving everybody, both teams were, that's the kind of game he could really flourish, and he did. Wide open shots for Trey Thomas is his cup of tea.
Yeah. He does that about 2 or 3 times a year, where he just goes off on somebody, and usually they win those games.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction that's going to have you raise your eyebrows. I think this upcoming game with South Carolina tomorrow night, the key to us winning, I'm going to give you a person you're going to think, Luke, you're a nut, is Miles Stute. And I'm going to tell you why. He has not played well in a month, and he's due to hit 4 or 5 threes in a game. And I think against South Carolina, because they don't play great D, this will be a game that Stute will play well. Will be tomorrow night, because they're going to need somebody else to step up. You're not going to get Liam to come out and score 30 again. Tomorrow night's going to be just tough to win as it was against Florida, because Carolina's feeling good about themselves. They just won at Ole Miss. Not that that's a great thing, but, still a road. They've now won 2 road. Their 2 conference wins have been on the road. and they're due to win a home game. And I know their head coach is preaching that, guys, we got to win it. We got to defend our home court, that type of thing. Knowing that they took us to overtime in Nashville. So we're going to get their best shot tomorrow night. That's for sure. But I will say this, Chris, who would have thought, even its first year before we played a game, that we'd be sitting here we're number 7 in the SEC. We would be the number 7 seed if the tournament started today.
Yeah, I mean, before the season, it was not – I would have had a hard time believing it was not incomprehensible, though. It's just the way they started, it was much harder to believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago than it is now, obviously.
Yeah, and to think that LSU would be 1-11 and Ole Miss would be 1-10, no one would have thought that. I wouldn't have.
Yeah. South Carolina has not won a home game since Friday, December the 30th against Eastern Michigan. Lost 5 in a row. Has lost them by 43 to Tennessee, by 41 to Texas A&M, 12 to Ole Miss, 15 to Auburn, 15 to Mississippi State, and 2 to Arkansas. It beat Ole Miss, which it lost to at home on the road. So I think that now again, last time out at home, it did take Arkansas to the finish. So there was that. So maybe they're getting a little better, but the others have been just bloodbaths in Columbia.
That's what I'm saying. They've had nobody there. The students aren't showing up. As we talk about Vanderbilt having poor crowds, it's been 0 people at that game. And when that's
the worst job in the league.
Right now it is. There's no question about it. And it's funny. Who would have thought that team, Frank Martin took that team to a Final Four not long ago? That's how.
Yeah, that's the randomness of basketball. They've never been back. Never been back to the NCAA tournament since going to the Final Four. They got nothing out of that run.
It's kind of like Georgia basketball. Remember the year after Dominique Wilkins left, they went to a Final Four in 1983, right, and then never sniffed it after that. It's just odd not capitalizing on doing something great like that.
Let's go to the mailbag, and then let's hit a little baseball before we end today.
Sure.
If that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. The mailbag is sponsored by Sutherland & Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. All right, I'm going to start with the basketball ones first, and then we'll go to the other ones. Papa Hick 4VU asks, do you believe Stackhouse is finally, quote, unquote, getting it as it relates to managing a roster, or can we expect him to take 2/3 of the season, I think he meant to say off again next year before he figures it out? This season of the Vandy Sports Podcast has been made possible by my friend Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. When it comes to general or cosmetic dentistry services, Jody is the best in Nashville. Just check out his client list. It testifies to that. He sees movie stars, music stars, athletes, coaches, you name it. Jody is the dentist of choice for stars in Nashville, but he sees regular folks like you and I as well. What people love about Jody's office is the ambiance. It's relaxing. It's friendly. Someone described it to me as a tooth spa. Whether your needs are general or cosmetic, go see Jody today. Call him 615-270-2322. See him at 55 Music Square East, not far from downtown or the Vanderbilt campus. Jody is a former Vanderbilt football player and a huge Commodore booster, so go and talk Vandy sports with him while you're there. Go see Jody Jones today. Thank him for his support of this podcast, because without it, this season would not be possible.
Well, I don't know whether he has or not, but he better not. And I have said this all along. If you'll remember when we were talking about midseason, I said the minimum this team can do, they got to get back to the NCAA. I still believe that. Minimum we do. And then next year, the minimum they do is make an NCAA. Look, we can say what we want about all of this, but if we win 2 more SEC games, I think I'm correct when I say this, he has won as many SEC games as Kevin Stallings did in his first 4 years. And no one was wanting to fire Kevin Stallings after. Now, I would have never thought that, but I look back, and sure enough, that's the case. So, and if he wins more than 2, then he's surpassed Kevin Stallings. So we have to look at that. Be fair, we have to. And I think next year, like I said, we got to go to the NCAA. How you do that without Liam and a couple of others, unless you get someone else in the transfer portal, and you have all 5 freshmen come back, which now I talked to someone over the weekend. I'm hearing that they're all happy and that they're all coming back, and none of them thinking about transferring after hearing just the opposite 2 weeks ago. So,
hey, look. That has been a hot topic of conversation a lot of places. I was not hearing the whole mass exodus stuff that everybody else had. Now, maybe it was out there and I wasn't looking under enough rocks, but I didn't buy that narrative. I've got my criticisms of Jerry. You know them well. They still, I'm still very skeptical about a lot of those things. That was not, and look, some of that is just, you hear that every roster. This guy's leaving. You don't really know, for the most part, what that's going to look like until season's end.
Right. Now, the one I did get a confirmation on was the Tyron Lawrence thing.
Right.
Which
that one, that was a little different.
It doesn't matter if someone's reaching out. All I know for sure was someone reached out trying to get him to leave Vanderbilt. Now, not that Tyron was reaching out to someone else about leaving Vanderbilt. It was vice versa. So, Tyron may have squelched it that day. Who knows? But anyway, if all 5 of those kids come back, you got to figure 3 of them are going to pan out, I think. You can just kind of tell that, winning solves everything, Chris. We talked about it before. The popcorn tastes better. Everyone's happy. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, even if you don't like Jerry or you do like Jerry, you can't help but have had a good week. If you haven't, then by gosh, you better cheer for another team, because to beat Tennessee and break their hearts the way we did, and then turn around and play really well at Florida, which I'll be honest with you, if we'd have done this podcast Friday, I would have been very skeptical that we could have gone down there and played so well after an emotional win against Tennessee. And to do that, you got to be happy. And it's all in front of you now. Now, it's asking a lot to run off 3 or 4 more wins here, but if they want to get even sniff the NCAA, that's what they're going to have to do.
I just don't suspect that a lot of lofty expectations were being foisted upon him. I mean, the casual way that he took the pre-conference, the justifications that I heard coming out of Magoogan even before the Tennessee win, the excuses were flying left and right for him, and they had sort of boxed off all the bad and excused it, and had very much put the highlighting pin on the good part, I think is a good way to put it. And look, when you don't have expectations that are communicated above your head, I wonder sometimes, is that fair to say that's how you get what you get?
It is, and I think Vanderbilt is historically, and I go back to the 70s when I first started working at Vanderbilt when I was young.
There have always been low expectations, but I think the last few years it has been taken to a new level in some ways.
Yeah, for other reasons too, may I add. But the one thing that I think that we've kind of looked at, okay, we're getting ready to make the football stadium a little nicer. We're getting ready to do this huge project, which is great. But it's almost like, well, we don't have to win until we get that done. No, you got to win. I don't care if you're playing in a barn. You got to win now. That's where they differ from the fan base. The fan base doesn't, just because we're going to have something shiny and pretty 2 or 3 years from now, doesn't mean that excuses you from winning now. And that's what has to happen. Win now. The 5 years of losing is enough for any fan base.
Yeah, I think people should buckle up and expect a few more years of this at this point. I could be wrong. Again, I could always. I think the Chancellor's a bit of a wild card there, but it just I hear a lot of the rationalizations and justifications are a little different, but I hear a lot of the same approach to Jerry that I heard with Derek.
Well, I'll push back on that because I think the reason for Jerry changing is because the heat was coming. I mean, look.
Yeah, no, I do suspect that's true too. Right. I mean, now I don't know where it was coming from, and I don't know why it took so long. But
well, I said this before on a couple of podcasts back. When that chancellor starts getting emails in his computer, that's when conversations go on.
Yeah,
and I think that's what happened. Honestly, that's my opinion.
I think extending him before the season sent a bad message. I wonder if the messaging had been a little different, if there wouldn't be a couple more wins on the resume, and then it's a very different conversation if they can pick up a few down the stretch that I think they can.
You're right. And here's the other thing about extending. I've been at Vanderbilt when they've extended coaches for a short period of time like they did Jerry, but they didn't publicly make that knowledge. I mean, they didn't make it public knowledge. You don't have to announce that you've extended him another year. Just let him still do that during recruiting, and it probably never gets out. Well, we never heard anything about Jerry. Is he here 2 more years or what? You don't have to bring that to public knowledge.
Okay, next one. Door Fan 6, do you think the Auburn game will be the biggest crowd of the year if they beat South Carolina?
I think, and I said this earlier, the max we're going to get in that gym, period, is around that 10,000. Tennessee, I think their attendance was 10,300. So I think we're still looking at that. I don't think we'll get 10,000. It may be the largest. We may get to 8 Vandy fans. I don't know how many Auburn fans will show up. There's of course, every SEC team has representation in this area. After Auburn losing to Alabama, kind of cooled their fans a little bit. But it is a weekend game. Those always scare me because people say, "Hey, let's go spend the weekend in Nashville and party and go see Auburn play." That may bring a few of them in, but I'm thinking not the largest crowd. No, I'm thinking 8,000. I think it'll be more Vanderbilt than normal. I do. I think that got you maybe 500 more butts in the seats.
They need to start marketing the heck out of 3F and 3L again, the season tickets. There's nobody up there when I'm in the gym. Those used to be packed. I think that is a good chance to build the fan base as a value ticket. I really do. I don't know why they have gone away from that.
Especially families. I agree, Chris, especially for families, because it's affordable to have a family of 4 up in 3F and 3L. It's an affordable ticket nowadays.
Yeah.
But I go back to this and think about this. Just put this in your head. If you're a average Vanderbilt fan, not rabid, just an average fan, you want to see college basketball, man, it'd be tough to pass up looking at an 80-inch screen at your house or setting up in the nose section at a basketball game. It's just tough, man.
I get it, but you can, when that gym is rocking, it's fun, and one of the ways to get it to rocking again is have people in there, and I think what they should do, make them $150 season tickets, and then if you want to make the single game tickets $50 or $75 for Tennessee and Alabama and Auburn and Kentucky, great, do that. What that does is that gets more of your people in the building and keeps more of other people's out.
Well, here was my suggestion, and as a fan, it will be a little bit annoying because of the high pitchedness of the voices. But you know how the women's team every year has a thing that they have elementary schools bring all buses of kids to the game. Have them in 3F and 3L.
Yes, that would also work, right?
It would annoy the heck out of the visiting team. Just put them all over there on the visiting side. So and again, that gym's so great when it's noisy. It is a tough place to play. I will never forget back in the days, the glory days, when we beat LSU and they were ranked number 1. They had a point guard. I think his name was Kenny Higgs, and he made a mention in the newspaper that he could not feel. He had to look at the ball because he could not feel his dribble. It was so loud in there. Coming back up off the floor, you had to down the ball. That's saying something.
Are they doing anything to market and build the fan base?
When I was there, they did nothing, and the excuse I kept getting was always, we don't have the money to put in marketing, which is a bunch of crap. It doesn't take a whole lot of money.
I think now it's down to strategy and effort. I really do. Or lack
I
of
do
it.
too.
Lack of both.
I do too. Look, we went from having less than 100 people at baseball games to having thousands of people. So if you win games and you mark,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, to be fair, back when basketball was a bigger thing here and they were winning games, you didn't have to market it; it sold itself. But the lack of realization that it's a different time now, and then maybe it's unfair for me to say. When I go, I'm on a media pass, and my experience is different. But I see the empty seats, and I don't know. It just seems to me like there would. You could have a 30-minute meeting and come out with strategies that would be game changers overnight, but that's just me.
Well, I pay for my seats, and so I know when they jumped up and went up way in the price, I'm like, why did you do that on the back of going 3 and 15, or maybe it was the 0 and 18 season that the ticket prices went up? I'm like, why did you do that? They thought that all those folks that have been paying for tickets for 35 years would just take it and move on. And that's not the case. Common sense comes into it. And say, look, we're getting gouged here. The product's worse and you're charging us more money. Where does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, GLH4VU, best case scenario versus likely scenario for SEC tournament seeding. That's a tough one to answer because you got other teams to deal with. Ken Pomeroy, for the first time all year, has got Vanderbilt going 500 in SEC play, 9-9. Games coming up, South Carolina away. I think they win that one. Auburn at home, LSU away. I'm going to give them 1-1 there. Florida at home. Kentucky away. I'm going to go 1-1 there. Mississippi State at home. I don't know. I'll just ride. I'll ride. They can win all those games. I'm going to ride with 9-9. We are in the midst of a stretch where they've played their best basketball of the year, and probably there's some regression due there. It's just my guess. So if they go 9-9, let's see. Ken Pom right now. What's that?
That puts us at 16-15, correct?
It does. It also puts them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tie in a 3-way tie for 8th with Arkansas and Mississippi State. They will be 1-1 against those teams. Look, if you're able to go 8-8, and well, depending on who that one, if that one comes against Florida. That would drop Florida to 9-9. If everybody else goes according to form here, then you are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, tied for 5th with Auburn and Kentucky.
And so win the tiebreaker, you beat Auburn. And possibly
well, it's a 3-way tiebreaker at that point. I'm guessing since I gave them 4-2 and a win over Florida, that would mean a loss in Rupp. So I'm guessing they'd probably be, I don't know. I'm not going to give myself a headache by doing the math here.
Well, to simplify it, technically, and this is just mathematically, we could finish still anywhere from 3rd to 11th is the way I look at it. Mathematically, that's assuming we win three, that we go 3-3, 3-3 or better. If we go 3-3 or better, we can finish anywhere from 3 to 11. So it's
I think 3 is highly unlikely because they're 3 games out in both the win and loss columns there right now.
We win a lot of tiebreakers. We win a tiebreaker with Arkansas. We win a tiebreaker with Florida at the moment. Won a tiebreaker with Georgia. 3.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's just too early to tell.
Well, I take that back. I'm looking at the projecteds. They are right now. They're actually 2 games back of 3rd. Tennessee had split the tiebreaker with. But man, that's a mass of teams. There's a bunch of 7 and 5s there.
It's a big. wine. No doubt about it.
It is.
I'll tell you what.
But I think it is. I think it is highly unlikely that they get the Wednesday night game. I've been saying that for a while, even before it went better than it was going a couple of weeks ago. I was not convinced they were going to be in the Wednesday night game. I've been saying that for a few weeks now, and now I really don't believe they will be.
No, I think we'd have to go 1-5 or 0-6 to be in the Wednesday night game.
Yeah, probably
Yep.
right. I mean, right now you've got Ole Miss, South Carolina, LSU are virtual locks for that. If they're tied with Georgia, they get the tiebreaker. Mississippi State would be another team they could potentially tie with that's below them. Again, you can take care of the tiebreaker there. But, I mean, like even if State jumps them, which I think could happen for sure, I still don't see them falling below Georgia.
You know, besides us on our winning streak, and of course Alabama, Mississippi State's playing as good as anybody right now. They're finally hitting shots from the perimeter. You know, early on it
State's
bad.
was also a product of schedule. State played Alabama twice, Tennessee twice, and also played Auburn once, Florida once, which isn't easy. I mean, they got a brutal
like
draw. Let's shoot.
I think you can attribute that to us too. We've done the same thing. We played Alabama twice, Tennessee twice,
True,
Arkansas. So
that's
it's
true.
And speaking of that, one quick thing before we move on, I think Tennessee has got a road in front of them, buddy. After losing again the way they did, you know that takes a toll on you. And then if you look at the next 6 games they've got, they only have one automatic win left, and that's South Carolina at home. Those other 5, they could. Those are 50-50 games at best.
Yeah, they are. Alabama, Kentucky, A&M, Arkansas, Auburn. Auburn on the road where Auburn rarely loses in Neville Arena. Kentucky and Rupp, God only knows with those 2 teams at this point. And A&M on the road, nobody's winning College Station very much these days. So
I can't for the life of me figure out Kentucky. I cannot. I don't get them at all.
It's got to be internal, don't you think?
It has to be. But I noticed something Saturday, and I was watching their game. When Calipari and a lot of coaches do this, when there's something that happens on the court, they go down and kind of use a teaching moment to talk to the players. Not one player was making contact with him. Not one. They were all looking around him, looking above him, just like we're sick of hearing this. So, not to say that there is issues with Calipari and his team, but I could see that. I really could.
Oh, I think there are. I was watching the body language on the bench the other night when they got whipped by, who was it?
I'm not sure.
Hang on. I think it was the midweek game this week. That would have been Arkansas. Arkansas beat them by 15 in Rupp. And they were, you had kids smiling. You had some weird things going on there. I'm telling you, I'm not shocked. I would not be shocked if Vanderbilt went up and won at Rupp.
Because if Liam's healthy still, and
yes, you need Robbins healthy, but
what were the games? Can you refresh my memory, Chris? What were the games we lost or won when Liam was out? I know we won at Georgia, which I think is probably the biggest game that we won because we didn't have Liam. What other games did Liam miss?
He missed A&M, would have made a difference there. Kentucky at home should have made a difference there, although they lost by 16. So that one is hard to argue. They won at Georgia. They did not beat They weren't beating Alabama here either way.
Did he play against Missouri? He played in Missouri game.
He did. Played 23 minutes. Scored 16 points. Played 23 minutes in Knoxville. Scored 18.
So could have easily snuck out another win there if he didn't.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you go back and look at some of these games. Like, give him another 5 minutes, and I wonder how many outcomes flip. But that is another podcast for another day, my friend. Let's see, what else have we got? I think, let's see, Go Doors 94. Have you observed any differences in Stackhouse in the winning streak? You've kind of been over that. What do you expect the final conference record to be? I'll let you make your pick there.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to go 4-2 in the final 6. So that puts us at 10-8, which would be 17-14. You're still in the same boat. I think you have to get to Saturday and maybe even win the SEC tournament to get the NCAA. Again, the factors. I tell you what's helping Vanderbilt is I keep watching these other teams win. NC State, Pitt. Pitt's now, what are they? They're leading the ACC now for sure. VCU, Southern Miss hadn't lost in forever. They're like 23-4 now. So it's helped that the teams that they did lose to are winning. That's the one thing that's happening. So it's gonna be close. I think it'll be close. I know all those stats tell you that someone's not going to get in, but if you win 10 of your last 11 or something like that, I don't know how they keep you out. You don't see very many examples of that. You know, there used to be a factor that said, how'd you do in your last 10? Remember that? I don't know if that even factors in anymore.
I don't know that they do that now. Yeah. I don't know. I ran some simulations on Bart Torvik, even had them winning out and still not getting in. I don't believe that, but just
I don't believe that.
The problem, you've got a bad loss against Grambling and just not taking care of business. You beat an NC State, somebody like that. Really, the only thing they did to speak of when they're out of conference was that win over Pitt, which was by 1 point.
Yeah.
So it's really not a mystery why they are where they are in terms of
no, it's the non-conference, no question. If you got to go back and look at it, that's for sure the reason why. If you don't make it, that's why.
Okay, I'm gonna go to other non-basketball stuff. This is all blast from the past football. Ann Arbor Door. In another podcast, you mentioned Jerry DiNardo was in the press box during a Vanderbilt game before Watson was fired. Can you give more background to that story?
Well, there's not any background to say. I just saw Paul Houlihan walking with him that morning. We're setting up the field, getting ready for the game against Tennessee. And I guess it was Tennessee, whoever the last game of the year was at home. I'd say Tennessee. And he's walking around looking at things. When no one was there, it was 4 or 5 hours before the kickoff. And then they're in the press box during the game. That's the story. That's all there is to it. There's nothing else to say.
Raiders 1967, can you give examples of how Barton Simmons has helped the football program, including an example of changes from how the prior staff approached recruiting?
Love this question. I was just talking to my wife about this. What a great job Barton Simmons does. Listen, this quarterback from Canada that we just got committed, what Barton is doing is he's bringing kids, and then we offer them, and then all of a sudden you see these other teams are all of a sudden interested in them. It's almost like Barton's doing some favors for other schools. They're saying, hey, if Barton Simmons is recruiting him, let's take a look. And I don't think we've ever had that at Vanderbilt, ever. So I just feel like, he's really, really good, man. He can identify talent as good as any guy I've ever seen over there. I think he's got guys that he sees as developmental players, and I think he's got those guys that are diamonds in the roughs that are 3-star guys that can come in and help us right away. I don't know how good this quarterback is from Chattanooga. I only saw him play once, but he looks to be I don't know why other teams weren't on him.
Let's see. We got a couple more. Maybe just one more. Via Superior. What did Woody say specifically about the ending of the 97 LSU game with the missed extra point at the end? Then he's got another one, but I'll let you answer that one first.
Well, there was just so much in the locker. I just remember in the locker room after the game, the frustration had boiled over between us. The coaching staff and they were yelling at each other. They were trying to keep it. We're over in the corner where the players couldn't notice, but the players are devastated. Everyone's throwing helmets. That's one of the darkest days in Vanderbilt football history. I may have told it before, but I'm standing beside Paul Dunn, who was the offensive line coach at the time, and I'm noticing that they are running the clock and that we're not even out on the field yet to run a play. And I said, look, they've started the clock, coach. And he took a swing at me and said, we got this. Don't worry about it. And I'm thinking, no, you don't got it.
Oh, man. He took a physical swing at you?
Yeah, one of those, not a vicious, just one of those where, you take the arm and kind of backing up a child or something, back up type thing. Not that he was trying to hit me, he was frustrated that I was trying to tell him something to help him. Heck, if I'd have told Woody would have listened to me. That was the thing. Woody and I had a great relationship. But anyway, I was just happened to be beside Paul Dunn, and I just said it. Look, the clock's running. And I was just like, no one's noticed this. And so that's when we got the second delay of game. And I'm like, man, it was just like almost like our staff didn't think we were going to be in that position to win the game. That's what it was. They were so surprised because we had not sniffed scoring all day long.
Right.
And then when Tavares scored the touchdown to make it 7-6, it's like, okay, are we going for 2? Are we going for 1? What are we doing? And it became a nightmare.
All right, last one in the mailbag. This also from Superior. What was your favorite and least favorite logo, and was there ever a logo design that didn't make it off the drawing board that you particularly liked or disliked?
It's funny. The Star V that they have now, you know how it gets on the side of the press box in football on one end? It's got that one actually had been proposed back in the 90s, exact same logo. And it never got up. I used to just, way we would look at them was I would order 20 or 30 different looks and helmet decals, colors and so forth. And then we'd just stick them on a helmet and see what we thought. Take them out in the light of day and that type of thing. See how they showed in the day game and all that. But that was the only one I remember that we had some really horrible ones. The flying V.
Yes. Yeah.
And here's the bad thing about that. It wasn't even a decal, it was a sticker. And everyone will know the difference in a decal and a sticker.
Man.
It was like a bumper sticker. It was so weird. I don't know how that came about, but it somehow slid through. But my favorite of all time is the Star V, no question.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand why they couldn't compromise. And, okay, if you're going to use the new Chubby V, then put it inside the star, for goodness sakes. That would have blunted a lot of the criticism, but, It
would have.
Vandy being Vandy.
And the other defense of that is, look at Georgia, it's just a G. Look at Tennessee, it's just a T. They're saying, what's wrong with Vanderbilt being just a V? And look, in baseball, it's been a V on our helmets forever, and it's been a V on hats forever, and it's just a V. But it was just the shape of the V that got people kind of like, why is it a squatty little V? I don't necessarily love it, but it doesn't bother me either way. Just win. As Al Davis said, just win, baby.
Yeah, the one thing, I'm not as big a fan of the baseball uniforms as some people are. I don't like the all blacks. They're overwhelming. And I've never really liked just the V on the cap. It was unimaginative. Use the Star V, but, in terms of my list of running complaints with the baseball program, that would be about the only one.
Well, I'm with you. I don't like the Friday night pinstripe black uniforms. Never have. With the Star V on the chest. I don't like that. My favorite uniform, and I'm probably in the minority, is the gold tops with white pants. I don't know why I love them so much, but I do.
You're talking about the very, what's the word I'm looking for here? The light lemon gold?
Yes, the lemon gold.
Yeah. Those are okay.
I don't know. What I like them is, if you look back in history, when we were a lot, because Corbs, he's not so much anymore. He kind of was superstitious, I think, because I remember at the SEC tournament, we wore those suckers like 3 straight games that we won against Florida and a couple other teams when we won. and we wore them every game. So that's probably why I fell in love with them, because we were winning when we had them on.
That's a good segue to baseball. By the next time we do a podcast, There will have been 3 baseball games played with 4 and 5 on the horizon. Oh, you're going to Texas. That's great. You told me that.
My wife and I leave, God willing, we leave Thursday morning. So
what's your gut feeling on this season and how it goes?
Gut feeling, between 37 to 40 wins, in that range. So you're looking at, be able to host a regional for sure. Probably host a super. I think we're going to be right about where we're predicted. Top 10 type baseball team. I think we're going to hit better than we thought. I think there's more bats on this team. I think the pitching's going to still be solid all the way through. I don't think it's going to be, you're not going to say, well, this guy's just an automatic W like a lighter or a rocker, but you're going to have options in that bullpen to where you can get out of an inning. And I think that's important. That's just important. Obviously. Now, the one thing that I think is going to matter more than anything, and we've talked a little bit about this, and I think you're doing some research on it, is the bats, the balls, and checking gloves when you've got teams that a pitcher is so dominant that it's silly. Those 3 things I think are huge for Vanderbilt, because I don't think we were one of those teams that in the NCAA was using cheater bats and that type of thing. So I think it's going to be advantage Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it is way under the radar, but there's a lot of stuff I think that's going to be changing, and it's going to be SEC. It's going to be through the SEC, not the NCAA. The NCAA still firmly has its head stuck in the sand on this stuff, but I think the stuff that happened last season made a lot of waves behind the scenes, and they're not making it public because I don't think they want to probably talk about it or have it in the narrative more than necessary. But I think it's going to look different and a lot different.
Hey, and I don't care how they got their information as long as they change it, because it was obvious to me. And I've been watching college baseball since 1974. So,
yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, going to be fun to have a lot to talk. Heck, we're 2 weeks out from spring ball too. My goodness, that's all I need is one more thing to track right now. But
and Chris, if you want to, I'd love to hear your prediction for baseball.
Oh man. I've got a sneaky feeling it's going to be a good season. Especially if they get close to 40, that's going to be a national seed. I love the way they have scheduled. Now, look, that could also turn sideways on them quickly.
They
pull a 1-2 or an 0-3, and then it doesn't go well against UCLA. And look, they got a lot of time to make up, but it's going to be tricky. They have not left themselves a lot of margin there in the schedule, but the pitching depth is going to be crazy good. I talked to somebody over there Friday. They think their hitting is better than perceived. Now, they don't also know if their pitching is, how do I say this? I'm not saying it's not special, but maybe a little bit overstated. That's not me. That's somebody that knows it better than I do. So we'll see how it plays out. I've covered Tim since his second season, and other than the first 1 or 2 where I didn't know how it worked and I'm figuring it out, I don't think that I've had a harder time sizing up what they're going to be than this year.
Well,
but I mean, I'm excited to see it because there's like a degree of mystery to me that's really intriguing. My gut is this is going to go a little better than maybe people think, but I can tell you the reasons why. I can also certainly give you the reasons why not.
Sure. I think the biggest difference you're going to see in this team is that starters will be pulled quicker because of the depth. I don't think you're going to see try to pitch his way out of a bases loaded jam after he's gone 3 2/3. Does that make sense? Because
and that might go for position players too, particularly in the outfield. And I know you're talking different things. You're talking about within a game, and I'm talking about week to week lineup stuff. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I agree with that too. In fact, you brought up what I was going to say also next, is that besides what I said about pitching, same thing goes for position players. If you got a guy, say the left field position, which there's probably 3 or 4 guys can play there, if you got a guy that is in a 0 for 20 slump, you can set him down and let him watch for a while and put someone else in who's just as capable. I think there's just a lot of good players. There's not a lot of superstars on this team. There's not any Dansby Swansons and that type of thing. But I just think you got a lot of really solid, good baseball players.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Luke.
Right.
We will have a lot to talk about this time next Monday, one way or the other.
Yeah, and if you want to contact me down in when I'm in baseball, I can give you some reports live from the action.
Yeah, I have a feeling you and I will be texting a time or two from Texas, so I will be here.
Have a great one.
All right, you too. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to today's episode. We thank our presenting sponsor, Jody Jones, DDS. We thank our other sponsors, Sutherland and Belk, Michael Kendrick of the Kendrick Group, and MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, and that's how we make this work, please email me at chrisley70@gmail.com. We also ask that you subscribe to our website, vandysports.com. That is $99 a year. You get things there that you don't get here. And of course, please rate, review, and subscribe where you see our podcast. That helps us get noticed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at vandysports.com. Follow me at chrisley70. And finally, subscribe to our Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast, which is part of the 440 Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll catch you with another episode coming very soon.